Hey everybody, welcome to this recap episode of How to Be a Real One Percenter. I've just wrapped up a great interview with Kaushik Kumar from Dark Matter, who shoots all these videos and who I've worked with for a number of years now in both capacities. An amazing man. So in these recaps, we try to unpack the gold that was in it and go a little bit deeper in case you'd like to make use of this. The whole purpose of this podcast was there's some work that I do and in the real 1% journey, which is the work that I'm involved in and helping people in that. There's some parts of the work that are really difficult to describe. They're quite a bit different. It's not something that's logical. It goes quite a bit deeper than that. And the results, as Kaushik talked about, can be quite profound or are quite profound when people do it. As he said, it's not always the easiest work to be done. Like we have to really be willing to look in and to look at what's there, to get past limitations, to see that they're there. But when we do, Kaushik talked about, what comes out of on the other side of that. And one of the reasons for this podcast is to delve a bit deeper in it. And I would love everybody to have results. On the podcast, Kaushik mentioned, what if everyone was able to get to who we authentically are, not have any limitations, really know who we are and what we want, and we're living this life that we love. And, we may not be able to reach everyone in all the perfect ways, but even if there's one thing that can be taken, that's the underlying purpose of the podcast here. So what I tend to do is just take a bit of gold from each one. I think there was some real particular things that Kaushik brought up that were really allowed for going deeper in the conversation. And, again, something that we deal with is that we don't always know what we don't know what we don't know. And what he brought up was that we don't know some things about how we created ourselves from the start, and some of the things that we believe that have a real impact on our lives that we may never have known is something that might not even be true. Like it just could be a concept that we created, that we've been taught and took for granted, but isn't that way. So there was a tremendous amount of gold there. The parts that really stand out for me in the interview with Kaushik last time, that's just concluded, is just saying, how he started from fear. When I've done the work long enough to know people have fears. Like we all just have fears about where we are. It doesn't matter if it's in our work, our business. It doesn't matter if it's in our relationships, in our health and well-being. We're just filled with fears. And if we stop sometimes, like lockdown and these various different things kind of forced us to stop and be with ourselves more, and in Kaushik's case, he said, the fears really came to the surface at that point. So it's a really important thing to note that we're starting from some places that can be debilitating for us. And I was really appreciative that he brought that up, that's there and that was having this impact on limiting what he could do in his business and in his life and in all different aspects. And, he talked about how challenging it was. I really appreciate him. I'm not out trying to say this is the easiest work ever. I haven't found the easiest of anything really works the best, but it does work. And, he said it was a challenge to get to this true, authentic self, taking 4 years of sifting through those limiting beliefs, sifting through what he believed about himself based on what other people said and may not have been true, and getting to the heart of who he is. And part of, getting to the heart of who we are is knowing what we want with this life. Like my experience is we all have something or some things that we are here to dedicate ourselves to that bring us the greatest fulfillment, the greatest inspiration, the greatest love for our existence. So it just becomes the best experience. And one of the great things I thought from Kaushik's, what he was saying is the connection between those stories, those beliefs that aren't true, and the impact it has on us, A, not knowing who we are, not connecting with who we are, and B, the impact it has on limiting us in terms of going forward. And I thought it was just, it's really important to know. Like we from the very get-go, somebody might say something to us, hey, you did that wrong, and all of a sudden we take on a belief, oh, I'm wrong, or I'm bad, or I'm not good enough. Otherwise, where do these beliefs come from? They come from these moments where we don't know how to process things, so we just make up a story about it and to basically try to protect us. And in other words, if I believe I'm not good enough, then I'll stop myself from trying, and then I won't fail and go through all of that pain. So Kaushik talked about how he worked through his story and then, got to that goal. And what was really great about it for me was just, they didn't really have to say anything. You could see it. You could see the connection that he had. You could see the peace of mind that he had. You can see that he's just clear and he knows who he is and where he's going. And while we did establish that, it's a work in progress. Like getting to know who we are is an ongoing process. But at the same time, we can bust through those facades and really connect with who we are. And another really great thing is that doing that, it just, some people feel afraid of doing that because they're like, well, my beliefs are what had me be driven. But what we always find is that when we address those, realize that anything limiting didn't turn out to be true, we find that success, that the mind just gets into this very creative, powerful place, and we find that our success grows, exponentially, and we also get to enjoy it. It's not that up and down sine curve, that Kaushik talked about, which is the high highs and the low lows, and it's not a pleasant. It's a very bumpy road of life. So getting to a place where we feel a lot more peaceful about who we are, knowing who we are, being clear. That's a lot of what I took out of what Kaushik's podcast episode was about. And I'd say if you'd like to make use of it, he said it took courage. It takes courage, and I'd say that's what you could take out of this episode is potentially start having the courage, if you haven't already, to really start taking a look within. Hey, what am I believing that's limiting me? And do I need to take a harder look at it to find out? What if none of it's true? What if anything you believe about yourself in a bad way isn't true? And somebody said, oh, well, I did have my failures. And I said, well, did you have your failures, or did you have your things that didn't work out and you have your things that did work out? And he said, well, yeah, when you put it that way, I said, that's just life. Sometimes things work out the way we intended. Sometimes they don't. The problem becomes when we project failure onto it or not good enough onto it. Those are the killers. So if we can address that and be free of that, then we can have a very powerful life that we love. So I want to say thanks again to Kaushik for being on the episode. Hopefully we've gone a bit deeper. There's something you can hear in this that you can take away and start applying to your own life to live your real 1% life. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.